if I'm a marketing director, the primary objective of the marketing function is to drive growth for the company. This is something that's only really been recognised in the last 2 or 3 years. The majority of mature and developed brands, there is an acceptance that the marketing department drives the growth. The marketing department also function as the voice of the customer in the organisation. So they're the ones that ensure that the customer is at the heart of the organisation and that their needs and what they need is kept foremost, above profit, above what particular egos at the top of the company might want. What the customer needs must be at the heart, and the marketing department's job is to make sure that that happens.
Okay.
And thirdly, there is a job, I believe, in the marketing department to sell marketing internally. Again, this is something that I think has changed over the last 4 or 5 years, that marketing needs to sell itself inside organisations. Until recently, I think marketing was perceived as a silo, and that they were perceived as a bit of an ivory tower and didn't talk to the rest of the organisation. And that, if you're trying to drive growth across the whole company, of course, creates an enormous gap. Well, 10 years is quite a long way to forecast, especially now. But I would say, certainly over the next few years, the challenges for marketers, and it sort of depends a bit on your sector, what you're trying to market, and also where you are in the world. But keeping up with the changes that technology is driving has to be one of those challenges. It has completely revolutionised many businesses and continues to do so, and has driven the speed in which everything changes, because for a long time everything has changed all the time, but technology has just driven the pace of that change. And what it's meant is that some of the bigger companies are potentially slower and slower to react, and therefore they've fallen behind. So there's for big organisations that find it difficult to change quickly, that is a cultural change that they're going to have to face. Secondly, I think we have to adapt to changes in global business generally. If you think about where the growth is across the world, Western companies and in the US, we're looking at very, very slow single-digit growth rates. The big growth rates are in the BRIC companies, Brazil, Russia, India, China, but also what we call the next 11. So the likes of Mexico, the likes of Poland, and companies like that. Certainly, many of the companies in Southeast Asia are experiencing 30–40% growth. And so for companies looking for growth beyond 3 or 4%, of which there are many, they are going to have to learn to move across into those markets if they can to get that level of growth. And that, of course, brings enormous challenges with it, not least cultural and everything else. And then another one would be to ensure, and it sort of goes back to what I was saying about being relevant, about the speed of change. It's keeping your products and services relevant to the customer, because their needs at certain levels will change. And keeping products and services relevant can be very hard. If you are Coke, or if you are Air France, keeping that product relevant to all of your different stakeholders and all of your different audiences can be quite tough, especially when there are new challenges all the time from quicker, more nimble organisations. So I think those three are some of them. And just developing the skill base of marketers, I think, is a huge challenge, because the skill base of marketers need to be a lot more knowledgeable about an integrated approach to marketing than it used to be. 20 years ago, you could get away with it if you knew all about advertising, but that's not the case anymore. You have to know about marketing as a multidisciplinary function. I suppose if I take the question and think about if I was hiring somebody, I would want them to have a curious and inquiring mind. I would want them to always be not satisfied, but at the same time having a rigorous approach to accountability, wanting to ensure that whatever I spent could be made accountable and we knew what the effect was. And that is increasingly hard. And maybe that should be one of the answers in the challenges is ensuring that your pound is effective. I think that's quite hard. Another thing a quality that would be necessary is wanting to continue to review practices. You know, going back to that inquiring mind and not wanting to be happy with the status quo. The companies that are innovative generally grow faster.
Yeah.
And so to be able to have that, you have to be able to allow that to happen. You have to be able to continually review what you do. So I think I'd want to do that. I would also, in terms of the qualities of people, I would want people or managers that would be happy to devolve responsibility at a slightly younger age to their team. So people that are happy to delegate and to give authority and to give the head to their younger managers.
And why is that?
Because I think you only learn by having responsibility, and you know, if you learn, organisations like Reckitt Benckiser, for example, have a much flatter structure than the Procter & Gamble's and the Unilevers of the world. And one of the things they put this down to, and you know, they're very, very, very successful in many, many markets and beat those two big organisations in the markets in which they operate. They have a much flatter structure, which means they have less hierarchy, and it means that brand managers can actually have ideas that get actioned sometimes at a country and a national and a global level. And I've seen that happen. So people that are straight out of university get profit and loss, P&L responsibility very, very early. They learn about business. They don't just learn about, absolutely, they learn about what makes an organisation grow. And you know, in those sorts of organisations, you don't have to wait until you've had 10 years experience before you get that. And of course, the earlier you get that, the earlier that you get experience about how to make things grow.
Because you have a fresh insight.
Yes, you certainly have a fresher insight, but you're going to make mistakes, and then it's in the interest of the business to accept that, you know, with that responsibility will come some failure, but with all failure you will learn, and you can't. There aren't very many companies that can grow without making mistakes.
True.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're
I
welcome.
hope to talk to you again soon.
Okay.